It's episode 2 of the Demo Guys podcast. I'm Sam Kaplan, founder of Brand Ambassador Consultants, joined by Jason Smith. Jason is the director of retail activation for Ithaca Hummus. Jason, great show last week. Good to be back here with you for week 2. There we go. We got the Ithaca shirt there. How was your week? I think you had yet another Costco Roadshow.
Yeah, I can't take credit for the success of this one. Our small mighty team did go out and sell another 4,700 units over the weekend, and honestly, led by our senior vice president of sales, Mike Somberg, who I don't know another senior vice president of sales out there doing Costco roadshows, and he did 2 back to back. So I have a lot of respect for that guy for a reason. He leads by example, which is what you really need to do, and it's a special thing. So thank you, Mike, for what you do. Dennis, Ramsey, you guys killed it. We got this weekend off for the holiday, and then I'll be doing 2 back-to-back road shows, one in Glenview, Illinois, which is Chicagoland, and then one in the Ann Arbor store, which is supposed to be a really busy Costco.
Yeah, Ann Arbor's a great area. That's a great Costco. So excited to hear that you guys continue to do well there. You mentioned Memorial Day weekend. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't give an acknowledgement to all of the families out there, that military families that have been impacted by losses over the years. We want to thank them for their sacrifice and really, acknowledge what the weekend is all about. A lot of people are going to be out having a great time, but there is a real purpose for this upcoming weekend. We want to acknowledge that and thank all the military families out there for their sacrifice. One of the things that I wanted to talk about, and actually, Jason, you this was a hot button issue for you, and we talked about, kind of show notes for this week. Surprising acquisition. Chobani is remaining very active in the merger and acquisition field. This one caught me a little off guard, though. Chobani announced the acquisition of Daily Harvest last week. Jason, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, what is Chobani not going to be involved in is what I'm wondering. I mean, they're just completely starting to dominate CPG, and it's cool. I mean, talk about a success story to shout from the rafters about with Chobani. They've just created a category basically, or reinvented a category, and here they are just kind of leading it now. So it's huge. I think it's a great play. I'm interested to see what they do with it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
It's what surprised me was I knew Daily Harvest primarily as a subscription service, but really in the last couple of years, they've pivoted. They've become more of a retail item featured in the frozen section. And this acquisition really is indicative of the fact that Chobani is looking to get involved in the plant-based frozen meal category. I don't know what or if anything they're going to do with Daily Harvest's, database of subscribers. I don't know if we're going to start to see Chobani products incorporated into Daily Harvest, or if Chobani will even continue to try to grow Daily Harvest from a subscription perspective. Daily Harvest lost some momentum there. Their valuation had gone down the last couple of years. And, I do see the Daily Harvest products in stores, but they have a very small footprint from my perspective. I haven't seen them, with a lot of shelf space in the freezer section. I don't see them in, every retailer. There's a lot of retailers where I don't see those Daily Harvest frozen meals. But Chobani has the bandwidth and the resources to fix that. So I think that this is more of a play for Chobani to kind of expand within the store footprint rather than build this out as a larger subscription-based service. Because quite frankly, a lot of these subscription-based services, while they provide good quality and good value, the growth has not been there. The customer cost acquisition for a lot of these companies is just almost prohibitive. They're infused with a lot of investor capital early on. They use that capital to try to acquire new customers, and they make a splash in doing so. But the sustainability of retaining those clients, those customers is difficult because, as a consumer myself, like I'll get offered these incredible deals. I'll jump on them, take advantage of it. But after the trial period ends, the real price sets in. And I would say 9 out of 10 times, I just decide, that's too rich for my blood. I like the product. I like the convenience, but I'll just go to the grocery store and get the same product there and save some money. So it's that's kind of my thoughts on that. But the acquisition comes on the heels of Chobani acquiring La Colombe last year. I believe the acquisition price was close to 800 million. So, Chobani is in acquisition mode. The Daily Harvest, this could be it. They may have, reached their spend limit right now, or there could be more acquisitions to come. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. Want to transition to our next segment here. This is kind of the main event that we had kind of teased a little bit, and I'm going to bring up a graphic here. So this is a semi-viral post that went up on LinkedIn a couple weeks ago that I got tagged in. A couple other people got tagged in it as well, and it's from a gentleman by the name of Scott Werner. And we're not putting this graphic up or calling Scott Werner out to try to dox him or try to embarrass him or call him out. This is this is more of a situation where he has his opinion, and we respect his opinion, and he's not the only one that has this opinion. But spoiler alert: Jason and I, being demo guys, we have a slightly different opinion. So I'll read the quote here, Jason, and then we'll get into it. But Mr. Werner said that I feel that doing a tasting is a waste of time, 2 to 3 hours to reach maybe 10 people and let them try your product. That is a complete waste of time and resources. Isn't it better to go into stores and train the store's beer representatives or bartenders and let them taste the product, not just once, but once every 3 to 6 months? The goal is to convert them into a viral workforce. Some things you just can't do online. And, he goes on a little bit there. But, I'm sure, Jason, that you've got some strong opinions there. I kind of want to let you take the floor and issue your opening statement.
I read that and I was tagged in the post too. And honestly, I completely understand where Scott's coming from. And unless you've really learned how to execute demos in an effective way, it can seem like a waste of money. It seems like you're throwing money at a cause that's really not worth it. What I'd like to say to Scott is this, first of all, I'm not in the beer and spirits space. So, I'm sure he's speaking more to that. And, I've been to some local distributors in the area and stuff, and I agree, those aren't very busy. So I would see where, setting up a table to sample there might not be as effective as like a Whole Foods demo, right? That said, you pick where you do your demos strategically for that reason. Like, you don't want to spend your time in a small little distributor if you know the foot traffic's not going to be busy. Also, there are certain times of the day that you target your demos, period. There's certain sweet spots that you have to make sure like you're going to be effective, and you're going to be, if you're going to have a good demo, you need to plan it. You need to know there's inventory, but you also need to know there's going to be some foot traffic coming into the retailer. So for someone in his position, who I totally agree with, like the in-person visit, training a staff, getting them excited about the product, absolutely slam dunk, not going to argue with that at all. But what's to keep you from setting up a table while you're doing that? And to me, it's like, who's going to make the bigger impact on that retailer? Say you're dealing with just a small distributor. He's buying your product, kind of regularly, not as often as you'd like. You go to them, you go to that distributor, you try to get them excited about the product, you sample them and stuff, and then you leave, right? And then another rep comes in and does the same thing, and he leaves. Another rep comes in, does the same thing, he leaves. Great, that's great. What's going to make you stick out above those other two people that went in and did something at that distributor? Probably nothing, right? But if you set up a table and you turned on 10 or 15 people to your product and sold some inventory for that distributor while you were there, while you were educating them on the product and everything else, I'm going to tell you right now, when you return to that distributor in 3 to 6 months, you're going to be welcomed with open arms and be like, wow, it was really great what you did last time. Will you do that again? So, Sam, I'd love to get your thoughts, but I think he's got a point in making that if you just show up and just set up a table without a plan and you have no strategy, absolutely a waste of time. And I see a lot of CPG brands. A lot of it's a reactive thing, like, oh, our turns aren't really good, let's throw some demos to pepper them up and get some velocities going. Reactive demos isn't a strategy. You have to be a proactive salesperson, period, in sales. You have to proactively plan to execute a demo at a high level. How to do that? It's not as easy as it seems. But if you do it right, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and boast all day, but I can show you a Power BI right now where my team's averaging 64 units per demo we're doing over 100, we're doing about 250 demos a month. At 64 units per demo, that's literally almost 11 cases of hummus every time we walk in a store. That's effective demos. If you can get to that level, you scale a business, period.
And, demos done wrong, complete waste of money, but strategic demos executed properly in a sustained, committed campaign, they work. They absolutely work. If your product is demo friendly, it's going to work over time. And I'll use an example. In terms of cost, your product is not going to sell itself. It's just not. No matter how great it is, you've got to have some type of marketing campaign. You've got to have a marketing plan. And there's all different types of marketing buckets where you can invest your money. But from my perspective, and I've worked on the brand side, I've worked in other aspects of marketing, and in terms of value, terms of return of investment, I'd be hard pressed to name a better bucket than experiential and in-store sampling. And, a good example that I'll bring up here, I used to work in the mixed martial arts industry, and I worked on the TV side for a little bit. And, I was newer to TV. And when I heard what the budgets were, to broadcast these shows when I was working for Showtime, we would do mixed martial arts events. First, it was a promotion called Elite XC, and then eventually Showtime switched flags to a promotion called Strike Force. And these shows, the championship level shows, they would cost anywhere all in between $1.2 to $1.5 million. That includes, the fighters, production, all of the other, expenses that go along with putting on a live sporting event. And, to someone that's not from the TV side, like I was, that sounded like a lot of money. But when I would talk to the executives of Showtime, they would tell me that this is dirt cheap for us. To put on a championship boxing event, they were talking about anywhere between 18 to 30 million. If they were going to do a live series like a Dexter or a Shameless, with all of the actor salaries and all of the writers and all of the producers, you could be looking at anywhere between $5 to $10 million an episode. So for a company like Showtime to spend, just $1.1 to $1.5 million on a championship level MMA event that actually got viewership and drove subscriptions, it was the return of investment. The value was tremendous. And that's how I see demos. Demos are not cheap by any stretch of the imagination. But when you look at out-of-home marketing, when you look at influencer marketing, when you look at running, TV ads, those costs are astronomical to the point where they're cost prohibitive for most emerging startups. They can't think about doing a national TV campaign. That's a non-starter. That's just not there. So, demos, you want to do it right. It's not going to be cheap, but when you compare it to other aspects of marketing, the return of investment, the cost of entry to get into demos and do a large scale demo campaign, it is way lower than some of these other marketing concepts that you could embrace. And I'm going to show you another graphic here. So this is a graphic that I drew up here. We want to talk about the value of demos. So you see a lot of acquisitions there in the better for you space over the years. What do all of those companies have in common there? Number one, obviously better for you. But Jason, what's the other thing that stands out about all those companies, including a little known company that I'm not sure if you've heard of it, Perfect Bar. Do you see a common denominator there?
Yes, I do, Sam. And it was sampling. And and I love that you brought this up because it's a measurable return on investment. And that's what you need for marketing spend. I tell every founder that I consult, and it's a lot these days because a lot of people are reaching out like, what are you doing at Ithaca? Why is the success so high? Like, we have the number one selling item in dips and spreads right now in Whole Foods Market 4-week data. That is incredible to achieve for a small brand that started in a farmer's market 12 years ago. We have a process of going in and generating trial and awareness, and we can measure the ROI every time. So it's really easy to calculate and get better and more efficient and just dial it down to where every dollar that we spend, the CAC, whatever you want it, customer acquisition costs, whatever, we have it so dialed down that we're not spending very much to acquire customers. Word of mouth is real. If you send someone home with 3 hummuses, they're going to share it with their friends. This is what these brands did to scale. This is it. This is what Vega did when I was with them. This is what Izzy did when I was with them. It's what we did with Perfect Bar. It's what I'm doing with Ithaca Hummus. And it's what was some other brands that are scrappy out there like Fishwife are really starting to scale because they get it. They understand the value of like, hey, I know it's a little bit more expensive to do it this way to start, but if I can keep throwing all this money at these other different marketing spends that really aren't measurable. Like I can do Facebook ads all day. How many customers come and actually buy it from the shelf? I have no idea. The great thing about a demo, I can pull the data from Whole Foods every week and say, oh my gosh, we sold 123 units at that store that day. Boom. I know what the ROI was. Yeah, I spent a couple $100 to get those sales through the register. 123 units through the register of hummus in a day. Anybody's going to take that kind of movement. Like you're going to be sold on that. So what I tell a lot of founders, I'm like, sub 50 million, don't do anything else. Just do demos. That's it. That's all you got to do. Find a retailer that you can get data from and now that's an important part. That register data that you can measure is important. But once you have that in place and you get that relationship going, that retailer is going to invest in you because you're investing in them and they understand that and they see your growth and they see that you're willing to put the hard work in to get your brand to grow in their stores. And it comes full circle. It really does.
And, I want to run down this graphic, but before we do, another thing I want to revert back to is Chobani. That right now they did, 3 billion in sales in 2024. And they had, a very active marketing campaign in the early 2010s. And I think their goal was to give out 1 million samples, and they did that over a 2-year period. Now, looking at the graphic, getting specific here, these are some of the best exits from my perspective when it comes to better for you brands. And you look at all 4 of them, all had strong field marketing components. The Kind, campaign was legendary. It's one of the best field marketing campaigns that I've ever seen executed in our industry. They sold to Mars in 2020 for $5 billion. So that goes to show you the power of demos right there. You look at Essentia, and a lot of people don't necessarily associate Essentia with having a robust demo campaign. But Jason, you and I were in Wegmans stores when Essentia rebranded itself. Essentia is an old brand. They had been around for years. They were just doing water. And then all of a sudden they said, hey, we'll come up with this concept for pH balance or alkaline water. And I wasn't too familiar with it, but I would do my demos or I would just go into Wegmans. And it seems like every time I went in there was a jack dude behind a table with a barrel cooler with whole bottle samples of Essentia. And, I kind of thought to myself, I would look at him and being a guy that likes to work out, I'd say, hey, whatever's in that water that gets you to look like that, I want that too. Give me some of that. And I got in the habit of buying Essentia. And, their brand ambassadors were walking advertisements for their brand. But they were also educated. I had no idea what alkaline water was. I could, when talk about pH balance, that would think about fish tanks. But they would explain it to me. They explained the benefits, and it just, within a couple years after they rebranded, they were sold for, it's kind of goes back and forth whether it was 500 million or 1 billion. But even if you look at the low end, 500 million is still a very strong exit for a water company that had existed for years that no one had really talked about. Now you look at Honest Tea, just another legendary field marketing campaign, produced some of the best field marketers in our industry, Pat Jamay, Matt Plume, Frank Vellante, all awesome minds there. And Honest Tea was an upstart. I mean, we look at Honest Tea now and we see it as this legendary better for you brand, but it really came from humble beginnings. And it got out there not only through in-store sampling, but a lot of experiential events. And it sold in 2011 for 75 million. Now, adjusted for inflation, today that would be 105 million, which is a strong exit. And of course, you had Perfect Bar, which, Jason, I think a little bit about. That was another strong field marketing campaign there. I just, the demos were strong and really got Perfect Bar out there. And Mondelez purchased Perfect Bar, for 284 million, another awesome exit. So, this graphic is to show some of the doubters out there that demos done right, not only do they work, but they can pay off tremendously.
No, thanks for putting that together, Sam. This is the first time I saw that graphic, and honestly, there's a lot of other companies we could add to
Yep.
that have done this same thing. And one of my favorite brands that I like to talk about, because it's hard to scale any business. It's harder to scale a business that never really had any kind of category to sell in. And Perfect Bar is the perfect example of that. But there's another brand that to me has been really a juggernaut, and it was all done by this kind of awareness, just sampling and building their own tribe to create their own tribe, and that's guayaki yerba mate. Like, you'll see guayaki. I know that's how you pronounce it, just so you know. But you'll see the colorful cans in retail everywhere you go these days. But that was nobody had ever sold yerba mate in America. And if you go down to South America, mate is everybody drinks mate. It's celebrated. It's like it's a social drink, you know. And they brought it to the United States slowly and effectively by just sampling, building their own team, having them go out and distribute and sample it. And same thing. Like, I can go success story after success story with this. But I think what Sam and I are really trying to get to is, before you buy into the social media ads and influencers and everything else, just look at the way the brands have gotten where they are today. Now, there's going to be those unicorn brands that just come out with something dynamic and special that just sells. I mean, Olipop is kind of one of those stories in modern times where it's like, holy cow, like, it's just unstoppable. It's like a train. And Malk and some other brands that I'm just thinking of off the top of my head are just super successful without doing a sampling. And that's going to happen. I'm not saying every brand needs to do this, but I'm saying this right now. Add a sampling program to those brands and watch your velocities just explode, because for every person that might be buying that product today, there's 5 or 10 people who still don't know what it is. So, you know.
And with that, we're going to transition to our next segment, which is brands that we would like to see demo. Jason, I'm going to kick it off here. You know, I'm going to stick with a theme that I began last week. I'm a huge fan of clean energy drinks. And this is a brand that I'm a huge fan of. It's intended for women, Gorgie energy drink, but I think that they're missing the boat there. They should change their marketing a little bit and start to go after the male audience, because I'm a dude and I drink a lot of Gorgie. You know, some of the clean energy aspects of it, 150 milligrams from green tea caffeine. So that's the clean energy aspect. 0 grams of sugar, and there's no sucralose. So it's good sweeteners that are alternative to sugar. L-theanine, so you don't get the jitters. Biotin, B6, B12. And, you know, Gorgie just recently got $25 million in what I guess could be referred to as milestone funding. They unlocked Target. They are now going to do a huge Target campaign. And, you know, I wouldn't recommend spending a lot of money doing demos at Target, you know, but I would recommend doing a lot of demos at some of the other retailers that they're in, such as Sprouts. I think that, you know, being a direct-to-consumer company that's transitioning to retail, I had heard at one point, I read an article last year that they were going to maybe pull back from retail. I think the Target authorization kind of cancels that out. I think that, you know, that's not necessarily the case at this point in terms of curtailing retail. But I would love to see them take what other retail outlets they have outside of Target and invest money in there. I think a huge campaign of Sprouts demos could be a game changer for them. And it needs to be a sustained campaign. You can't just do 1 or 2. I think if they made a commitment, hey, we're going to demo for at least, you know, 6 to 12 months here at Sprouts and really try to increase our shelf space, increase our velocity, I think that would be a strong investment. I'm not sure if all 25 million has to go to the Target launch, but they should carve out a couple million there for in-store sampling at other retailers.
That's a great one, Sam. Honestly, I would have done the same one with the Gorgie. But kind of in the same space and kind of go off guayaki. So there's another brand in that space. It's Clean Cause. I don't know if you can see the can.
Yep.
I might have worked for this brand before Ithaca Hummus. And 50% of the net proceeds goes to addiction recovery, which to me, right there, is a selling campaign, right? Taste, fantastic. They launched the first sparkling line of yerba mate in our country. And with that give back, it was a slam dunk. Tastes amazing. And then they came out with a still line about 2 years ago. Tastes awesome. My wife and I crush these every day. Love them, you know. when I was with Clean Cause, they'd never done demos. So I was like, hey guys, what if we just try running one TPR, one promotion in a region, and just measure the effectiveness of just doing demos in it during that TPR versus, what the past history has been in that region with running TPRs. So just for example, it was the Northeast region of Whole Foods. The average lift per promo or TPR period, a 2-week, for Whole Foods, for anyone who doesn't know promotions of Whole Foods, they're 2-week periods. Usually it's A-B thing. It's A and B. It's, the first part of the month is A, the second part is B. Sometimes they're 3 weeks long. It's usually they're 2 weeks. Average lift per promotion for Clean Cause when I came on board was 2 to 3% per TPR. I was like, that is not a good lift. You're not getting your dollar return if you're getting 2 to 3%. I said, I'm going to set up 6 demos over a weekend in some Northeast stores. They weren't even the top stores. They were just stores where I had relationships. I went in, I sold on average about 120 cans per demo. 16% lift in that promo. 16% versus 2 to 3%. That's all it took. 6 demos. One person. That's it.
That's why you're the legend.
I mean, that's that. But you know what, Sam? It's not even that hard. And if I could have taken 5 more people to do the same thing I was doing with that brand, we would have scaled. This thing can scale.
Yeah.
You guys need to be doing demos. Ryan, Todd, do demos. Let's do it. Let's go.
And speaking of scaling, I'm going to go to my second last product for the week. This is Earth-Fed Muscle. I'm a big supplement guy. I see it locally at Kimberton Whole Foods, which is where we, the area we live in here in the greater Philadelphia area, both Jason and I. I see a couple slots at Wegmans, but, I believe that Earth-Fed Muscle, if properly capitalized, if they put their product, liquid to lips, had brand ambassadors out there doing regular demos in stores nationwide, and, found a good oat milk, a good almond milk, and mixed, got some shaker bottles and mixed the samples up there. People would taste the clean ingredients of, Earth-Fed Muscle, and then just the benefits are undeniable. This is some of the cleanest protein powder you're going to find on the market today. And outside of the greater Philadelphia area, I don't know too many people that know about Earth-Fed Muscle. So would love to see them get out there and get some demos going and really get the word out.
Well, I know we're getting short on time, so I'll just bring this one up really quick. So sharing the refrigerated space with Perfect Bar, there was this awesome brand called Nelly's that came out shortly after Perfect Bar started to scale and get space. Love this product. It's more of a snack. These are absolutely delicious. I mean, they taste so good. And you know what? The one thing that's holding them back, nobody samples them. And nobody really tries them, and they're a little bit higher ring. They're $2.99 retail in most places I go or above. So, to buy this without trying it is a big commitment. But once you try it, you're going to buy it because these are phenomenal. Nelly's does a great job. Carla, I'd love to see you start a demo campaign with these. I think you could really take some share in the category. You guys have a great product. Love to see it.
And they did have a demo campaign back in the day. In fact, for Brand Ambassador Consultants version 1.0, about 8 years ago, they were one of my original clients. And we would demo those at Fresh Market in the greater Philadelphia area. And we sold a ton of those. It's a clean ingredient candy bar that tastes great. I remember, the SKUs would have anywhere between 12 to 14 grams of sugar or less, which for a candy bar is exceptional. And they taste amazing. So I would love to see them get back into the demo game. That's a product, Jason, that I think would be perfect for Costco. But before they get there, they're going to have to increase their velocities. But if they could do that, I think the sky would be the limit. You put a good value pack in there at Costco, and I think those would sell pretty well. So we're going to transition to our final segment. That leads us to our product review. And this week, Jason and I decided we're going to review Slate's brand new ultra protein drink. Let me bring up the graphic here so we can get some of the macros there. So you're looking at 200 calories for the entire bottle, 42 grams of protein, and there's no artificial colors or flavors. I know the Slate guys a little bit. Good guys, good product. Dana White from the UFC is actually an investor in Slate. So I'm familiar with their core line of products, but this ultra protein I mean, 42 grams of protein is a lot. I can't drink the whole thing right now, Jason, because I worked out earlier and made a protein shake with earth-fed muscle. But let's dig into this. If you got it with you, you don't have it with you, all right.
Unfortunately, I got home around 10:30 last night from Massachusetts after that Stop and Shop event I was working, so I didn't have time to swap by Wegmans, but I tried it. So go ahead, Sam.
Here's to you. I'm going to drink it for the both of us. This is my first time trying it.
Honestly, the thing I love about Slate, I'm very familiar with that category, the RTD protein. It's in my blood with Mix One. I don't know if you guys know Mix One. Izzy Soda created an offshoot line. It was done with Dr. James Rouse of King Soopers fame of Optimal Nutrition. They worked together to formulate these Mix One drinks. 15 grams of protein, 2 to 3 servings of fruits and vegetables. This was 2008, 2009, actually helped Izzy scale. That category is obviously on fire right now. And Slate with that creation, to me, like that 42 grams of protein and 200 calories, I don't know how you're going to compete with that. It's just, and it tastes good. It's a smooth taste. Like you don't get this weird aftertaste. I love it. It's a genius product. It's
Jason, I got to go 9 out of 10. Josh, you guys outdid yourself. This is excellent. I am going to be a regular buyer now. They've got pallets at Wegmans, just pallets and pallets at Wegmans. So on sale right now as well. So I'm probably going to go and get some more here in a little bit. But Jason, that about does it for episode 2 of the Demo Guys podcast. I want to thank everyone that's been listening to us, whether it's the live stream on LinkedIn Live or the archive version on YouTube. We will be back again next week, next Wednesday. I think there may have been a couple issues with the live stream on LinkedIn Live. I'll get that fixed, but we got the archive versions ready for you 24 hours a day at the Brand Ambassador Consultants YouTube channel. But if you have any questions, check us out on LinkedIn. Jason and myself, you'll see the links to the shows all over our feeds. But if you have any questions, any feedback about the show, feel free to get in touch with us. We'd love to get your thoughts, suggestions for future topics. We want to make sure that this is a show that you guys find valuable. So again, appreciate everybody for listening in, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, everyone.